I never got to the end of the video, so it's like about, I don't know, maybe close to 8 o'clock, and I'm in the process of doing laundry, and I just cleaned up my kitchen, and now I decided to clean up my bathroom, which I'm in my bathroom right now. So what you're looking at is the top of my soap dispenser. So yeah, I guess I have the energy to clean the house right now, so I'm just kind of buzzing along. So I was thinking today about opinions and how, of course, what they always say, everyone has got opinions, and opinions are like assholes, right? Everyone's got one. But, I don't like to voice my opinion, especially in public, but this is my channel. And since I was affected by something that was beyond my control, I basically felt as though I had to make this channel to talk about some of the issues, mostly for my own mental well-being, to straighten out what was going on in my mind, because I will tell you, when you are in a situation like this, it can be quite terrifying. I would like to say that I don't like to tell people what to do with their lives. I really don't. And although, I've expressed my opinions about people who have certain practices, like maybe incestuous relationships and stuff like that. Just because I don't want to be in them myself doesn't mean I'm shunning people who practice that sort of thing. It's just not something that is acceptable for my life, so I don't want people to think, well, she's telling people what to do, and I don't do that. That's none of my business what other people do. But since this issue, I got dragged into an issue that I had nothing to do with, I'm letting people know that I wouldn't do anything like that. So anyway, so I know there's a lot of talk that goes on that I'm not comfortable with. And I resent the intrusion into my personal life, mainly because, I'm somebody who just doesn't want to, I don't like the attention. I don't like the gossip. I don't like the the things that I've had to experience in the past. I was always the kind of person that when I first got a job, I was always excited to be there, and I always wanted to do my best. I was always looking forward to going to work every day and just doing my job and learning more and whatever. And that's all I thought that work really entailed. I didn't think it was so, it was a platform for, mobbings or whatever. So things that went on in my life that other people didn't have to experience. Consider yourself lucky, because, if you have good business partners, which you probably do, people who, just how you have a mutual exchange with people, and maybe who arranged your job, and that's the greatest thing. Can consider yourself extremely lucky if you're in that situation. But if you're someone like myself, like a lot of other targeted individuals, which I personally think that's the main reason why so many targeted individuals are in this situation. And like I said, there's a lot of misconceptions about why they're in the program. Many people think that the government is behind it, or, that they, I've heard all kinds of theories, but this is really the main thing that I personally think it is. I think it's your family and people that and they have personal beliefs or agendas or ideas, and they are imposing these things on people. And we do, like I mentioned, the employment guidelines, this is where these things come into play, because you may have, you might be Jewish, right, for example, and you might meet somebody who, your neighbor or whatever, and you just moved in, and they might be talking to you, and you tell them what you do, and I know a person who owns a business, I can get you in, right? And so you're thinking, okay, that's a great idea, but they want you to convert to their religion. And when people want you to convert to their religion, really, it should be based on your salvation, nothing else, okay? And sometimes I think people misuse religion or any other sort of issue to lure people into employment. And when that takes place, unfortunately, this is when you're dealing with you can deal with possible abuses. You know, like for example, if that particular Jewish person does decide to work for that person, and they try to avoid, you know, the topic of religion while they're working at this job, but this person continually presses the issue, then they're going to lose their job, right? You know, and it really shouldn't come down to that. It should be based on your skills, what you can do for that employer. And so there's a lot of bullying that goes on. There's a lot of bullying, and I do believe that I'm not the exception when it comes to the other targeted individuals. I think that most of these people who are dealing with the workplace mobbings and the community harassment, it usually comes from their family. You have to have a person in authority to instigate this sort of thing. You have to. And I want to clarify something. My family or anyone does not have authority over me, not in a legal sense, okay? But still, it could be a family member, it could be your spouse, it could be an ex-spouse, it could be maybe someone that they believe has authority, okay? So maybe like my ex-family came in here in this town and said, well, you know, I'm her older sister, and, you know, I have rights over her, and people were silly enough to believe that, but really they don't. Nobody has rights over me. But in the case of targeted individuals, this is what happens, and people, you could easily fool people into believing these things. So in order for that to take place, somebody has to pose as somebody who has authority over another person. Otherwise, I don't believe that it would work. Had I been a person who just moved into this town without the attachment to my ex-family, I don't think I would have had these problems. I mean, I would have dealt with some issues. I mean, that's very likely, but it wouldn't have been like this. It would not have been. And I'm sure of it, because I've seen other African Americans, especially women, who seem to be doing just fine, right? So it's I'm a target. It's basically what I'm saying, and I didn't want to be. You know, I've always just kind of wanted to live here in this community and kind of live my life in peace. You know, I didn't want this, and I didn't want to be, when I left the farmer's place, I just wanted to go on with my life. And that's exactly what I wanted to do. And that's what I should have done. You know, when you're dealing with workplace mobbing and you dealt with something that was traumatizing or emotionally disturbing, if you are willing and if you're ready, then you should go back to work. That's the best thing that you can do, okay? But if you are so traumatized that you can't work, then I suggest you take that time off. But I've always been the kind of person that just wanted to bounce back and get right back into it. And, you know, I get taken off of work, laid off, or whatever you want to call it. And that's not something I ever want to do. I don't like time off. I don't. You know, even when I was working, like there were times where, you know, you'd have vacation, and there were times where I would get my vacation just cashed out because I never took it. You know, maybe I'm just somebody who works a lot and I'm comfortable. I feel comfortable working. I only feel comfortable when I'm working, you know. So time off for me is like a nightmare. I don't like it. I don't like having time off. I don't like spending time, you know. I like having weekends and stuff like that. 3-day weekends, you know, when a holiday comes back to back or whatever. That's wonderful, but just sitting around wondering what's going on and that kind of stuff, it can be very draining. But anyway, back to the opinions. You know, I know that there's people who, you know, not just my ex-family, but people who've gotten word of my situation. They want to, you know, voice their opinion, but you have to understand that everybody's situation is different, you know, and what's good for one person may not be good for another. You know, I am a close to 50-year-old person, and, you know, and some people might say, well, you know, maybe you should ask somebody who's in your age group. I know how to act. You know what I mean? And so I think sometimes, like my family, my ex-family, they tend to think that, if you have certain interest or something, then that's an indication that you're immature. I'm not immature. Now, I may act silly. I have, I might tell a dumb jokes and I might have my little arts and crafts, but that's not an indication of a person's maturity. Maturity is when, how can I say this? When you are able to make reasonable decisions, when you are able to use logic and reason, when you are able to handle responsibilities, basically. And if a person is able to do that, then they're fine, And so, they think, well, she likes Hello Kitty, so therefore, blah, 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 blah. One thing doesn't mean another. And so, you get all these different people's opinions, and it can be quite overwhelming. There was a lady that I had just recently met, and she was a Snoopy fan, and I know she was a lot older than me, maybe about 3 or 4 years older than me. And, I never once thought, oh, she's immature because she likes Snoopy. I think, my family was very close-minded, or they have just like a one-track mind. Like they think only one way. Like, it's either black or white. Like, if you are somebody who enjoys certain things and it's not within your age group, then something's wrong with you. Where other people have a different variety of personalities, different aspects to their personality. And one thing doesn't mean another. So I think, obviously there's disagreements within my family. And I think, when I was growing up, my mother always said, when you're 18, you can do what you want to do. And I looked forward to being 18. Why? Because, I felt very unhappy in my household. I didn't quite understand it. Like, I didn't realize I was being bullied when I was younger by my family. I knew they did inappropriate things at times, but I knew that my home environment was not as happy as I had wanted it to be. Like, I've always wanted to have like a warm family. If I had an issue, that I felt that I could talk to somebody without being judged, or sometimes I think the discipline was a little bit too harsh. We were spanked as children. Sometimes I think the spankings were unjustified. You know what I mean? But not everybody has good parenting skills, But as I got older, I realized, not everybody's perfect, and I forgave my family for all the bad things that occurred in my life, and I forgot about it. But then when I was confronted with this issue, then that kind of changed everything, and it made me see them in a different light. Like, I can't honestly say that I don't know them. And why I say this is because how it is that you could be concerned about your family. Like, I may not have been around there all the time, but I always wish them well. I was always concerned, like when my sister's husband was laid off or something, I was always hoping, I hope he gets back to work soon. Those are things were always in the back of my mind. And to think that while you were sitting here wishing them well, they're basically wishing you dead. You know what I mean? That is a very disturbing feeling, And so people on the outside, they don't fully understand the dynamic in the family. They just know that they met my family, they interacted with my family, and they kind of go along with it only because they know them first. And somehow, I get painted out as a rebel. I'm not a rebellious person. I mean, I did things, when I was younger that I shouldn't have done. I think every teenage kid does, right? That's normal, actually. If you see a kid that does everything wonderfully, 100% well, then that kid, well, I guess kudos to that kid, but you don't see too many goody two-shoes like that, right? But, we all make mistakes in life. And, I know that my family looked down on me because I had a child out of wedlock. And, but I know that was kind of, I always took it kind of like an excuse because, especially now, because when I think about it, my sister Lisa, her child has not one, but two children, and she's not married to her partner, right? So I've always thought that now I'm starting to think that, this was just some sort of abusive thing as being, the scapegoat and the youngest child in the family and whatever. And it's abuse. Some people don't realize what abuse is. They think if you're not pounding somebody in the face, then that's not abuse. But there are so many more forms of abuse. And often mental abuse is one of the most traumatic ones. And I think I can't help but feel traumatized over it because, like I said, I'd go over there for meals. And while I was dealing with issues that were going on at work, harassment issues that were going on, I would go to visit my family on occasion to get away from it. I didn't want to think about it. So as I'm sitting here eating among these people, these same people that I'm going over to their house, eating dinner and talking and spending a little bit of time with them, are the ones who are creating all these problems for me. You know what I mean? And it makes you ill. Like when I first put the pieces together, it really made me ill. And I'm the kind of person, because everyone knows that Maria has my mental abilities somehow can become physical issues too. And when I realized what my family was doing, it felt like shards of glass were going through my brain. Like it was a pain inside me that was so painful. Like, how could you do this? How could you do something like this to me? I'm a person who's all by themselves. Like, I don't need this, right? And it was very, very painful. Very painful. Heartbreaking pain. So when I deal with, workplace harassment, what I mean by that is like when I get, employers calling me to waste my time exploiting this family abuse issue, I can't help but be like, what in the world? Like, why are you remaking me live through this trauma? Because the reason why people know me is because of this issue, and there's a lot of, insensitive people out there, kind of like the farmer who referred to me as a scapegoat. It's like, do you realize that you're exploiting an abusive family situation? Does it make sense to him now? Because it is abuse, and I can't see it any other way. It's not a helpful thing. If my family has opinions about, about me that they feel was constructive, then that's something they should have talked to me about, while I was having dinner with them or whatever. Also, I think that the issue, going back to the guy from high school, I think there was an issue, like they wanted to prevent me from seeing him or whatever. First of all, I don't contact him. I'm not in contact with him. I tried contacting him after I realized that he may have something to do with this. But if by mere chance he was indeed somebody who was contacting my work or involved in my work, or maybe he was a stalker, meaning like he was calling my work or something along those lines, I had no idea about it. But it would be the responsibility of the employer to make sure that that sort of stuff doesn't happen. Like, I know that sometimes, you might have a secret admirer or something like that, and people in your workplace, they might think that that's an interesting thing, it's a cool thing, it's a whatever. But even if this person seems nice or whatever, that's not appropriate. So they need to make sure that their employees are safe. And instead of making light of it, if somebody was to call and if I was working at a place and there was a girl working there and somebody was calling for her or whatever, I would ask this person, do you know this person? And then if she said no or whatever, I would tell this person, look, you're going to have to get in contact with this person after work. I would not give out this person's phone number or whatever, but I would definitely make sure that, number one, they shouldn't be calling on the phone line, the work line. They shouldn't be, people should not be accommodating these sort of people, because you never know. Now, I don't know, like, if that happened or not, but I'm kind of thinking that maybe it did, because why is there so much effort I'm just trying to understand all this because all these things happen within a certain period of time, and I'm trying to put it together. You know what I mean? But I don't communicate with him. I don't have any, he doesn't communicate with me. Since I found out that he might have something to do with this, I did contact him several times. He knows how to get in touch with me. He never does. Okay. So there is no communication with this person. And whether there was or not, that I'm over the age of 18, that would be my choice. That would be my choice. You know what I mean? But I believe that he's probably in a relationship. So, I really don't understand. I really don't understand that part of it, really. But it's the responsibility of the employer, to make sure that their employees are safe. And, accommodating people who could potentially be harmful to another person could be dangerous, not just for the employee, but it could also be dangerous for the employer, because what if this person, somebody told this person, oh, you can meet her out in the parking lot, and then they ended up blowing your brains out, right? Who's responsible for that? The employer would be, because they should not have accommodated that person, you see. And I think people take light of these sort of situations, and I don't think he's dangerous. I don't think that he is. I don't know. I don't really know him that well. I just knew that I always thought he was a cute guy from high school, and that's pretty much all I really know about the guy. Okay, I don't know anything else about him, but I do think maybe it had something to do with that. You know what I mean? And I think that there's a lot of rumors going on about that, but I don't communicate with this person. So anyway, but like I said, I'm over the age of 18, and I would have the right to see who I wanted to, regardless. You know what I mean? And so when you think about how controlling, people are when I'm over the age of 18. I'm like way past 18. So I expect to live my life how I want to. Like I don't want to be responsible for upkeeping a family name. I don't want that. I don't want any of that. Especially now that I understand what happened. I don't. To me, I feel as though I've been abused enough. Not just, like I said, not just in the workplace, okay? This goes back into grade school, throughout all these years. And I really think that it's been too much. It's too much. Like you just hurt somebody to this point to where, I feel there is no love bond between me or my family members. And that's just how it is. I mean, when I think about the things that I've missed out on in life, and I missed out on a lot of good things in life because of this, because of their issues, going back to the opinions. So, I understand that, people have gotten to know my ex-family, and they are, in cahoots with them. And that's one of the reasons why I'm very careful about who I communicate with. Okay? Because I want to keep as much trauma out of my life. I don't want to encounter, employers that just want to, because maybe they know there's been commotion. They may know that I make videos about this issue. But really contacting me and wasting my time, you are opening up old wounds. It's like you're just like, the trauma just comes back. You know what I mean? You're exploiting a situation that is an abusive situation, and I wonder what is wrong with you for doing something like that. It's a very sensitive situation, that my family has literally zapped me of most of my life. That's a horrible thing. And so why would you make light of something like that? That's a sick thing, So I feel as though I encounter a lot of weirdos and sick, sadistic people, because you can only be a sadistic person to make light of a situation like that. That's not my opinion. That's the truth, okay? That is the freaking truth. Anyway, back to my cleaning. I got plenty of work to do. I'll be back with another video some other time later. To all TAIs, have a wonderful evening.